that on film.
Edit that part.
I got that on film too.
But I have the absolute respect for him. But if you remember that 60-minute segment that came out about a month and a half ago, all they did was show the speaker crying over and over and over again. I mean, Leslie Stahl and them knew exactly what they were doing. Because what did they portray? They tried to portray now the man who was the third in line for the president, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, the people's house. They tried to show him as a weak individual. When you look at what's happening all across our world right now, I just had an alert on my BlackBerry where we just lost 8 soldiers in Afghanistan in the last 4 hours. 8 soldiers. In the last 3 years, under the Obama administration, 60% of the fatalities in Afghanistan has occurred under his watch.
Wow.
The Pakistanis telling us they're not going to allow us to fly drones into Pakistan. You look at the events that are occurring all across North Africa and the Middle East. It's because once was that powerful image of an American president, that great seal, the Oval Office, the center of, strength and might, has now become a joke of character in place of weakness. And therefore we find ourselves in the situation in which we're in the United States of America. See, if we're truly going to have strong men that will go up on Capitol Hill, and I will tell you, I mean, it's great to have strong women, but you need to have strong men in this nation. There's no doubt about it. It is going to require each and every one of you supporting men and getting out there and giving us the courage. I have to tell you what Sarah Palin said, maybe we should teach them how to fight like a girl. I'll tell you what, that's a poke in the chest. And I hope that some of my colleagues will take that to heart as we get ready to go back in a couple of weeks and deal with this debt ceiling vote, which will show, do we have conviction? Do we have courage? Do we have commitment? Do we have the character to do what is right? It's very easy sometimes to stay on the train to nowhere. But oftentimes it takes more of a man to get off that train and walk that path by themselves with no one else around them. The most important thing that I need you all to do, you got to show up, ladies. You think about what happened about 2 weeks ago up on Capitol Hill, when all of a sudden we were having this big contentious argument about, American taxpayer dollars, $356 million, 33% of the budget going to Planned Parenthood, the #1 provider of abortions in the United States of America. And the liberals saw that they were losing that argument. They put out the call. And all of a sudden, there were women in pink t-shirts all over Capitol Hill. And then you had Representative Louise Slaughter, Democrat of New York, who stood up there and said one thing very simple. She said, Republicans are here killing women. You had Harry Reid over there in the Senate talk about how the Republicans are going to take away the health care of his daughters and granddaughters. We need you all to be up there to counter that. We need you all out here to counter that. Okay? Just today I had an incredible interview with the Broward New Times. And of course, the Broward New Times has never written anything favorable to me. But of course, they decided they sent some young lady to try to interview me. And of course, I knew that was about, to try to get me to lower my guard. But the thing was, I was not going to allow that to happen. And I challenged her. Why would you want to interview me? Why the Broward New Times, who has never done anything favorable to me, why are you here?
Good question.
But the thing is that you must let them know that I will stand against you.
Amen.
You cannot back away from any fight, no matter who they send before you. And that's the important thing. When you look at someone like Debbie Wasserman Schultz now, who is the head of the Democratic Party, that's who they are. And that's the exact same person that incited a protest in front of my campaign headquarters back in October last year, saying that I was a misogynist and that I hated women. Okay? And the great thing was that the women in my campaign, sorry, I will use my army voice. The women in our campaign printed up t-shirts that said "Women for West." That's what we need you to do. We need you to come in and lock shields.
That's right.
And strengthen up the men that will go into the fight for you. To let these other women know on the other side, these Planned Parenthood women, the Code Pink women, and all of these women that have been neutering American men and bringing us to the point of this incredible weakness, to let them know that we are not going to have our men become subservient.
Amen.
That's what we need you to do. Because if you don't do it, then the debt will continue to grow. A debt that right now, 47% of foreign countries own, 29% China. Deficits will continue to grow. 1.42 trillion, 1.29 trillion, 1.65 trillion in the past 3 years. What will be the future that we leave this young lady and the family that she hopes to have in the future if we don't make a stand right now? 2010 was a great thing, but 2010 was not the end all.
No.
2010 was the enabling operation. 2010 was the shaping operation. The real fight, ladies and gentlemen, comes in November 2012. In the next 19 months, we're going to need you to get out there and fight. Because if you don't understand that this is just the same as those Spartans stood in the gap at Thermopylae, this is the fight for the future and the legacy of this constitutional republic that we know and love, the United States of America. Now let me tell you one other thing that Sue brought up about numbers. It doesn't take a whole heck of a lot of numbers. You know, 300 has an incredible meaning in history. At that great battle at Thermopylae, Leonidas only had 300 of his most dedicated personal guard that stood there. And even when they knew they were going to be surrounded and their demise was because they got encircled, he sent one person back with a simple message, and that epitaph is there at Thermopylae. And it says, "Go tell the Spartans and strangers passing by that here, obedient to their laws, we lie." 300 men, because 300 women had raised those 300 men, and they stood on principle. How many people have seen that movie that Tom Cruise was in called The Last Samurai? That was a true story. It was historical fiction. The actual samurai leader was named Saigo, and there were 300 samurai warriors. And they stood upon the principles of the old way, the principles of the Bushido, the principle of the samurai, the warrior spirit. And they stood against that technology that was brought before them, the repeating rifles, the Gatling guns, the cannons. And just the same as you saw in that movie, there was a final charge that only 30 of them did, mounted upon horses, and they rode to their death. But those were 300 samurai warriors that stood on principle because the 300 Japanese women had raised them to be samurai warriors. And then, of course, when you go to the Bible, why do you want to steal my message? You know, whenever you got a pastor in the house, but Pastor Troy is absolutely right with Gideon. When Gideon went out and got tens of thousands, God said, no, you don't need that. And he came back with a few more thousand. No, you don't need that. Gideon ended up having 300. But they marched in with the conviction. They marched in with the faith and belief in God that they stood on the principle. They stood upon what was right. They faced the enemy, and God granted them the victory. See, I don't care how much billions of dollars is raised by the other side. I don't care how much they go out and they dominate the alphabet soup, the All Barack channel, the National Barack channel, and the constantly Barack station. We have right on our side. And if we stand upon those principles, in November 2012 we will be victorious. But if we believe that we're weak, if we believe that we need all of these other things, remember, put your faith in God. As it says in Proverbs 3:5, trust in God and lean not upon your own understanding. In all of your ways, He will guide your path. That's what we need to recognize right now. Because if you don't believe that the essence of who we are, our Judeo-Christian heritage, is at stake, that's part of it. This is not just an ideological battle, a huge ideological chasm about the relationship of government to the individual, to society, and to our business sector. It really is a spiritual confrontation about the soul of these United States of America. When you read David Barton's books, he talks about the founding fathers and their conviction in the scriptures, and truly how their faith enabled them to create this great nation, the United States of America. Because no one would have ever thought 13 disunited ragtag colonies could take on the greatest empire that the world knew at that time. But you know why they could do it? Because of the women who told them to get out there and fight for liberty and to fight for freedom. So this is what we need you to do. I need you to stand. As Abraham Lincoln said, plant your feet in the right place and stand firm. As Thomas Paine said in December of 1776, these are the times which try men's souls, when the summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will in this crisis shrink from his duties. But to he that stands, they shall be rewarded with the love and admiration of all men and women. We can talk about numbers ad nauseum. We can talk about, illegal immigration. We can talk about energy independence. We can talk about taxation and regulation. But what does it really boil down to? It's what's in your heart that will cause you to stand. And stand in the gap and close this ideological gap that is building in our country. You must show them, as they said to the Spartans, Spartans, lay down your weapons. And they replied in two Greek words, molon lave, which means come and get them. You must go out, and if they want to take your country away from you, you must tell them molon lave, come and get this country.
That's right.